Well, hi everybody. I'm Alan Hutchison. I'm one of the RMIT Online coaches, and I'm having a chat with one of our online facilitators, Lily James. Welcome, Lily. You're in London as we speak, aren't you?
I am, yes. It's nice and early in the morning here.
So tell us, what do you do in London, and how does your professional life in the UK fit in with your teaching role with RMIT Online?
Sure. I moved to London at the end of last year to begin my PhD and also a lecturing role in marketing focused on sustainable consumption in fast fashion. And so because I work full time and I'm also studying, RMITO actually fits quite nicely into my schedule. I tend to do morning classes before I head off to work. And even with the time difference, works quite well. I also mostly really enjoy the link to back home, back to Australia, seeing my Australian students each week. I really feel like it creates a strong connection with them, even though we're on the opposite sides of the world.
Because you are an Aussie, by background, aren't you, Lily?
I am, yes. I moved from Melbourne.
Yeah, great. Which is where I am at the moment. It's evening here, even though you're coming up to 9 o'clock in London. What do you see as the upsides, and I guess we might call them downsides, but the challenges of teaching in a purely online environment? So in RMIT Online, it's not blended learning. It's not online because of coronavirus. You're teaching in courses that were designed from the ground up to be 100% online. So what are the upsides and the challenges?
I think the challenges with the online learning environment is the lack of a physical connection to a learning space. And I think traditionally we think of higher education or education in general being linked to a physical building. So without that, perhaps you can feel physically disconnected from others. But in saying that, I think online learning presents just different ways to collaborate and connect with others. So it allows students, especially at the moment with coronavirus, and colleagues and industry professionals to come together and connect around the world in the same room in different ways that we're just not used to. So I think it's not just a question of, less, but it's just different forms of student communication and different ways of creating a learning community.
So how does that work? Because you're speaking as if the online classroom was an actual humanized and personalized and individualized space, whereas a lot of people would imagine it's just online lectures. So how does it work? How do you read your class? How do you get to know students as individuals?
Yeah, I think the key to creating this classroom that I speak of is creating an authentic one. And in doing so, you're really bringing your personality to the classroom and sharing your passion for your subject matter, whether that's marketing or otherwise, with the students in all interactions with them. So webinars, discussion boards, one-to-one chats, even emails. So I feel like if you show and share your passion with students, they feel encouraged to join in and join with you. Creating a personalized environment online, it goes beyond knowing students' names. I think it's about creating an environment where students feel seen, even though they're not physically there, or they might not even have their cameras on. So how can you make students feel acknowledged and supported in that environment? So I guess about reading a room when there is no physical room. I think it's about creating and setting expectations as a community and as a class. So working together to build those. I encourage students to have their webcams on so they can see each other. But again, I won't force that. I think it's about creating an environment where we use different tools in our learning. So different ways to express yourself. So whether that's using mind maps or whether that's using breakout rooms, quizzes, chat box, even using emojis to express your thoughts on an answer in particular. It's about catering to all different levels of interaction and comfort level and getting students to express through that. But then in saying that, it's also about knowing when things aren't working and perhaps being able to adjust your practice accordingly. Every class is different, every student is different. So you do actually read the room without being in the room. So positioning things in different ways.
Can you help us to imagine what students actually do in an online classroom? And I hasten to add that although the weekly webinar is a major learning tool, it's not the only one. So there are discussion boards, and there's emails, and there are drop-in sessions, Q&A sessions, often called open door or office hours. But again, people who don't know much about this probably imagine that students learn by reading and they learn by listening to their teacher. The way you talk about Lily, it sounds as though students learn by doing. So what do they do?
Well, I think being a facilitator is very different to being a lecturer. So you're not in a lecture in a webinar, for example. It's more about a conversation and a building of knowledge and information together rather than sort of one way. So all our interactions from webinars to discussion boards are back and forth. So we use different tools to create that. So we can use mind maps in class. We use brainstorming boards. We've also used quizzes. We also use quizzes in our discussion boards. We have debates. We have scenarios. We've done in breakout rooms. We work in small groups. We work on case studies. There's all different forms. We also have our drop-in sessions, as you mentioned, where you can pop in and I'll be here to answer your questions, and we can do that one-to-one as well. So there's lots of different opportunities to interact in a way that, a traditional environment perhaps only presented one.
Yeah. RMIT Online puts a huge priority on teachers learning themselves so that they are better and better prepared to enable student learning to the highest possible degree. What have you learned from other online facilitators or from our coaching programs, both one-on-one coaching and group coaching sessions?
I think that's important to note that when you join RMIT, you're joining a teaching community. So it's very much you're connected to others in that space. And I'm supported really to expand on and experiment with my teaching through the coaching program that RMIT offers. So in our one-to-one practice with our coach, I get to choose different skills that I want to work on, things I want to try, perhaps experiment with. And then in our group sessions, our coaching sessions, each TP, I get to collaborate with others. So I get the opportunity to learn from other facilitators, perhaps more experienced ones, observe them and hear their thoughts. In particular, I learned quite a bit from Demetra, who I'm working with this TP as well. So I learned how to really introduce different ways of encouraging students to speak in an online environment from her. So I guess the coaching program really offers the freedom to experiment with different practices and hone your skills.
So Lily, you make RMIT Online sound like a really energetic and vigorous learning community where the students are learning, of course, but the teachers are learning continually from one another. And I like the phrase you use that RMIT Online is a professional learning community. I want to thank you very much for your time. I can see from the clock behind you that it is coming up literally to 9 a.m. in London, and you've got a very, very busy day ahead of you. So Lily James, been a pleasure to chat, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. Bye.
Yeah, bye.